Alright, so yesterday, President Trump announced his ban on transgendered people serving in the military. The devil is still in the details. We don't really know if that means he's going to kick out all currently serving people, because people have been serving openly in the military. Transgendered people have been serving openly in the military since the Obama administration. So it's not clear if this means he's going to kick people out, what they'll do to morale or cohesion. Will they just stop recruiting people? What all that means. And I kind of go back and forth on this. There's two other videos from two YouTubers I really like, and I'll put them in the description below. One is from Sticks Hexenhammer 666, who makes a very good argument that this is a moral argument that he just didn't want to have. He didn't want to be in the culture wars at all. And that all President Trump has to do is say we are no longer going to fund through taxpayer money the treatment of transgender people, meaning you won't get hormone replacement therapy, you will not be getting any gender reassignment surgeries and that sort of thing, and then it's just off the table. You just take the economics argument out of it. The other person, I believe her name is Zuzana, she's Polish, so I'm going to butcher her name. She makes the other good argument that transgendered people often come with a host of other issues involved. Very high rates of suicide, very high rates of PTSD. I also believe very high rates of alcoholism and drug abuse. And I believe her argument is such that transgendered people typically come with so many other issues that they just aren't really mentally fit to serve. I kind of go back and forth on this because both of the arguments are right. And as I was thinking about it, I came to another question, I think a bigger question, which is, why are we talking about this? Why is this a thing? And I don't mean just Trump's ban on transgendered people serving. I mean, why is there so much noise out there about transgender people anyway? To give you an idea, there was a study that came out in June 2016, and I'll put a link in the description as well, where they basically just did a survey, where they basically just called people up and asked them, do you consider yourself transgendered? Do you consider yourself male or female or gender neutral or something else? It was totally like, you tell us what you call yourself. And they discovered that the number of transgendered people doubled. Just because of that survey, they caught twice as many transgendered people. What that means now is instead of there being 0.3% of the U.S. population is transgendered, it is now 0.6% of the U.S. population is transgendered. 0.6%. Let me give you some other numbers to kind of help bring that in the. So according to the study and the raw numbers, they said that roughly about 1.4 million adults in the United States identify as transgendered. According to a schizophrenia.com, a sort of a nonprofit source on schizophrenia, according to schizophrenia.com, 2.2 million people in the United States have schizophrenia, which means depending on, from country to country, it can be 0.5% to 1% of the population has schizophrenia. Personality disorders. Personality disorders include borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, those sort of things. About 9.1% of the United States and people in the United States have some sort of personality disorder. So when we talk about transgendered people, we are talking about a group of people that is smaller than a number of folks who have schizophrenia, and way smaller than the people who have personality disorders. Now, we wouldn't let schizophrenics in the U.S. military. That wouldn't be up for debate. We really don't want people with personality disorder serving in the military, even though I know that they do, because it's just so difficult to detect, and a lot of people can actually serve pretty well. And so nobody is making the argument that transgendered people need to serve because they have some sort of right to this. This is still technically a mental health disorder as described in the DSM-5. Now, I have a lot of problems with the DSM-5, but like it or not, it is still the sort of like the official diagnosis manual that we use for mental health disorders. It's what I have to use as a counselor. If I'm writing up a report, if I'm billing insurance, if I ever have to like testify in court, that is the book that people are going to want me to justify my diagnoses from. And if I don't jibe with that book, I can get in trouble. So I think there is an argument that we don't want transgendered people serving. But like I said, there's apparently like maybe 6,000 people in the United States military out of the 1.5 million, I think, or something like that. People serving the United States military, about 6,000 of them are transgendered, most of which are probably male to female, which means that they actually can't even serve in combat roles because most women don't serve in combat roles in the United States military. Up until very recently, they weren't allowed to. So we can't even argue that there's a unit coherency problem or anything else like that. It is basically just virtue signaling. But I still come back to this question of why so much noise about such a small population. And I don't mean just the Trump's transgender ban. I'm also talking about why are they everywhere in the media? Why are they on the cover of Time magazine? I can think of 2 different Time magazines off the top of my head. They're in the waiting room of my office that have a transgendered person figured prominently on the cover. Why are we constantly making sure that we include this group of people, which is very, very small? I don't think I've ever heard of YouTube putting out a video to bring awareness to more schizophrenics, and we have people sitting there just babbling incoherently about things, and we've got to improve their lifestyle. They're out there too, and a lot of schizophrenics would argue that their beliefs are real, and their delusions are real, and their hallucinations are real, and we've got to take that into consideration, right? I mean, if we follow this postmodernist viewpoint of life, then schizophrenics' viewpoint are just as valid as anybody else's. And that's really what we're getting at. And this is the reason why transgenderism is everywhere, is because it fits the postmodernist narrative. If something as basic and as inherent to your identity as your gender is up for debate, then what else is up for debate? If you can't even just say, I'm a man, and that means X, then what else can you not claim? What about, your ethnicity? What about your nationality? What about your occupation? I mean, this is really what it's getting at. This is why we see transgenderism everywhere in society, is because it does match this postmodernist view of reality in which there is no reality, and even what's hanging between your legs, or not hanging between your legs, is up for debate as well. And so we have to push this narrative over and over again. I think another good question, which is probably a whole other video, is why is Trump going there? And why is he going there right now? For those of you following the current events, there's some pretty important arrests happening connected to Debbie Wasserman Schultz during her time as the head of the DNC. Maybe this is Trump playing 4D chess. Maybe he wants to make some noise because he wants people talking about transgendered people in the military and not talking about the investigation until the investigation is further along. Or maybe he's as incompetent as some people think he is, and he steps on his own news. I don't really know. But that's sort of my take on the whole Trump transgender ban in the military. It's going to be pretty much a nothing burger. There's not that many people, not that many transgender people in the military. If they all got kicked out, we would find a few anecdotal instances in which that caused a problem for some folks, but in general, our military is going to be just fine. Conversely, if the ban gets overturned, it's deemed unconstitutional, which some people think it probably is, and all the transgender people got to stay in the U.S. military, it still wouldn't impact military effectiveness or readiness at all, because there's just really not that many of them. We are talking about a very small segment of the U.S. population. That doesn't mean that we should entirely dismiss them. It doesn't mean that they're not worthy of treatment and help and support, and it doesn't mean that you can't hire them or work with them or work for them. That has no impact on your personal, everyday, individual basis. That has no impact on things. But why we as a nation, as a society, seem to be bending over backwards to accommodate, or specifically not accommodate, this very small group of people. The only thing I can think of is it fits in this culture wars of postmodernism, which really just needs to die. But anyway, I hope you liked this video. I'm going to try and post more often. If you did, just like the video, por favor, and also subscribe. I'm going to try and put out at least a video a week or so, maybe more often, depending on if the mood hits me. And anyway, have a good weekend. Bye.